introduce our next speaker. So Claudine Thornhill is a naturopathic nutritionist, a wellness coach, and owner of Claudine J. Thornhill Nutrition, which helps to make people feel, think, and be better. Claudine is a women's health specialist, primarily focusing on supporting her clients to balance hormones, manage weight, increase energy, and thrive through stress. By empowering women to make healthier food and lifestyle choices, Claudine's clients are able to take charge of their health and ultimately their lives. Can we give a big round of applause for Claudine?
Thank you. Okay, right. Hi everybody, thank you for having me. So as Leah said, my name's Claudine Thornhill and I'm a nutritional therapist and health coach specialising in women's health. So what we're going to be focusing on today is going back to hormone imbalance. I'm going to try not to repeat anything too much and we can kind of get to the heart of things. But what I'm going to be talking about is hormones and what they actually are, what happens when things go wrong with hormones and we have hormone imbalance, and what happens when things go right as well. And then I'm going to move on to giving you some tips about how we can live in hormone harmony through diet, lifestyle, and then leaving you with 5 top tips so you can actually go away and do some things practically today to work to balance your hormones. So first of all, hormones, what are they? Does anybody have a description for what hormones are? Okay, silence. Go ahead.
It's the chemical release that from your mind,
Yeah.
from your brain, and it's particular points which are chemicals that make changes in your body.
Yes.
Alter at different points, depending on where you're at. So it could be when they talk about homeostasis and balance, or they're talking about the growth hormones.
Mm-hmm.
Different hormones play different parts in your development throughout your life.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. Thank you. Thank you for helping out. Right. So I will repeat what she's... I will repeat, yeah. So essentially, I'll summarise by saying hormones are chemical messengers, like the lady said, and they have an effect on different areas of the body. So there are receptor sites on our cells, and the cells are the smallest part of any of our body, combined to make organs, bones, eyes, and all that kind of thing. There are receptor sites on our cells. Those receptor sites receive whatever is being given out, whether it's insulin, whether it's hormone, whether it's estrogen, and that then creates some kind of reaction in the body. And usually it's something to kickstart a process, basically. So essentially, they're chemical messages that kickstart a process or regulate a process. I'm just going to talk about a few hormones and what their roles are in the body. So first of all, one of the hormones you might have heard about is cortisol. Anybody know what cortisol is involved in? Right, yeah. So we call it the stress hormone, although it has loads of other functions in the body. But essentially, when we are stressed, cortisol levels would generally be high, and then that has effects throughout the body. And the reason for that is because receptor sites for cortisol are all over the body, compared to receptor sites for estrogen, which are mainly in the breast tissue, the uterus. Receptor sites for cortisol are all over the body, which means that cortisol, the hormone, can have an impact on various areas of the body. What cortisol can do, so cortisol is quite safe, or it's actually quite protective in levels of low stress or when we're dealing with stress for a short period of time. So it's involved in what you've probably heard of the flight or fight response. So when we're under immediate threat of danger, what happens is that cortisol kicks in, it makes our brain more alert, it brings energy to the fore so that our energies can go into our muscles, so we're able to run or fight run from or fight a particular threat. Other areas that aren't so... Other functions that aren't so critical to moving away from a threat, such as digestion, such as reproduction, such as going to the toilet, those things are kind of put on hold because your body is trying to get away from the perceived threat. So what happens is when we're in a state of chronic stress, ongoing stress, and there is actually no physical threat, but we are under stress, these things then carry on, these processes carry on in terms of heightened brain activity, our energy levels being really high, and trying to get that energy into the muscles to be able to run from or fight a threat. That continues to go on, and that has a detrimental effect on our body, because then other systems, like I was talking about, our digestion, our reproduction, our sleep-wake cycle and things like that, are all negatively affected. Okay, yeah, so there's a summary there. Also, our weight is affected as well because of what I was saying with the energy being produced. Because our body is trying to use our fuel to fuel our muscles to run from or fight a threat. If there is no perceived threat and we're not using that energy, it gets stored. We have an excess amount of fat or sugar. It gets converted into, it goes into our fat cells to be stored, ready to be used. If it's not used, it will be stored, particularly in the midsection. Then we've got insulin, which we heard as well. So insulin is mainly responsible for blood sugar regulation. It essentially works by, so let's say we eat a meal. This isn't a normal, healthy situation. We eat a meal, our blood sugar levels go higher. And what happens there is that insulin kicks in, recognizes that our blood sugar levels have gone higher, kicks in and moves the sugar or the fuel from our food, from our bloodstream into the muscles to fuel muscle activity. When we have chronically high levels of sugar in our bloodstream, two things kind of happen. One is that because there's so much insulin being produced over a long period of time, the receptor sites that recognize insulin, they become less sensitive because insulin's hanging around all the time. So it's like, okay, you're back again, no need for me to do anything, basically. So they become less sensitive. And two is that the pancreas that produces insulin, it gets overworked, it gets burnt out, and eventually it will stop working. And that's when you have a case of type 2 diabetes. And type 2 diabetes is when your blood sugar levels are consistently high to a dangerous level. Okay. And again, it affects weight, because if we're not using that energy that's in the bloodstream, if it's not moving into the cells because the receptor sites are not working anymore, it gets stored around the middle. Okay. And also tired, and we're getting fatigued as well because the energy is not being able to move from the blood into the muscles. It's being stored in the middle rather than being used by our muscles. Then we've got the thyroid. So the thyroid produces its own hormones as well. It's involved in regulating our heartbeat, our breathing, the way we use energy, the way that we use oxygen as well. And you've probably heard of hypo and hyperthyroidism, or overactive or underactive thyroid. And that's basically where the body is producing too little or too much of those thyroid hormones. And these are some of the, these are the things that it kind of is involved in. And actually hypothyroidism, which is low or underactive thyroid, is more prevalent in women and also older people over 60 as well. And then finally, we've got estrogen, which we all have heard about. And estrogen is responsible for the development and the management of our reproductive systems. Estrogen is protective for the heart. It's also protective for the bones as well. So that's where we find where older women, where their estrogen levels are lower, they might be more at risk of developing osteoporosis and brittle bones and things like that. So estrogen is protective. But estrogen, the thing about it is there are 3 forms of estrogen that could be circulating in our body. So our body produces estrogen, it does what it needs to do, and it's converted twice. The final form of estrogen, we need to be excreting that out of our body. What can happen is that final form of estrogen also is very active, highly active, more active than the first form that we were using when we were maybe kicking off our monthly cycle and things like that. So the third form that we're left with is highly active, and this is what causes issues within the body. So, because estrogen also is responsible for cellular growth. So when we've got things like fibroids, if we're not excreting that highly active form of estrogen, this is where we come into problems. So we need to make sure we're excreting that out. Okay, so in summary, these are some of the things that happen when things go wrong. So I've touched on weight quite a bit, and it's because of multiple reasons. It's because of the cortisol being high, and your body storing that energy around your middle to be able to run from the threat or fight it. It's also caused by insulin maybe not being, or insulin resistance, that basically that's when the cells aren't responding to the insulin effectively enough. And again, the energy or the fuel isn't moving to your muscles, and it's actually being stored around the middle. what else can that be for? That can be for lack of sleep as well. So there are hormones involved in sleeping and waking. If we're not sleeping, not getting quality and adequate sleep, it will lead to weight gain as well. Also, when we're stressed, we're not making the best food choices as well anyway. We're going to be craving carbohydrates, we're going to be craving sugar, we're going to be craving fat, again, just to be able to respond to the energy needs that we have. So this is the reason why we have weight gain, heavy, irregular, painful bleeding. That can be linked to the high levels of estrogen circulating as well, and womb health issues. Inflammation comes in for a number of reasons as well, and joint pains. Again, cortisol, that could be the main one. So generally when we're stressed, our posture isn't good. We're going to be hunched up like this. We might be clenching our jaw, just tension in the body. So that can cause joint pains, headaches as well, tension headaches, but also inflammation going on as well. Malabsorption and digestive issues. So if we are stressed again and cortisol is high, our body isn't focused on digesting food. It's focused on getting away from the threat. So therefore, our digestive system is compromised. We might have constipation, we might have diarrhea. We also are less likely to be able to absorb the nutrients that we're eating as well, because again, our body's not focused on that, it's focusing on staying away from that threat. And then also when we've got issues with skin, hair and nails, that can be linked to the thyroid. That can also be linked to lack of sleep, because sleep is so crucial in repair and growth. And also there was one more I was going to say about that, but I can't remember it right now. If I remember, I'll come back to it. Okay. Any questions on any of things so far? Yep.
You mentioned you need to excrete
The estrogen.
How?
I'm going to talk about that. So she was saying we need to excrete the estrogen, so I'll go on to talk about that shortly. Okay. All right, so when things go right, basically. So this is essentially what happened, the opposite of what I was just saying. So we're more able to manage our weight, and obviously weight is an individual thing based on your own genetic profile and your predisposition, but it's based on your own body shape. But we're more able to manage that weight, and we might hold weight, but we might not hold it around our middle. It might be around our thighs, our bum, our breasts, which is natural for women to do. We'll have more stable energy levels, one, because hopefully our hormones are balanced, we're getting good quality sleep as well, but also our insulin is managed, so therefore energy is being used by the muscles in an effective way. Used by our muscles in an effective way. Regular monthly cycles, because we balanced everything out as well. And when we're not stressed, our body can focus on those reproductive actions that need to happen as well. Okay. All right, so now we're coming to come to some solutions. We talked about the problems. We're going to come to some solutions now about how we can live in hormone harmony. And some of it has been touched on before, so I'm going to try not to repeat too much. But so Selim was talking about hormone disruptors just now. So I've got a bit around that. We talked about she was talking about hair care products. And I'll expand it a bit to talk about personal care products. So whether it's stuff that we're putting on our hair and our scalp, but also stuff that we're putting on our skin. So you might have heard that anything that we put on our skin is absorbed into our bloodstream within about 30 seconds. So if we're getting those endocrine disruptors in, it's circulating within our bloodstream alongside hormones and anything else that's in our bloodstream. So what we want to look at doing is using products that don't contain some of the things that was talked about before, the parabens, the SLSs, all those kind of things. So we're, as much as possible, using natural oils and butters in terms of moisturising. Castile soap is a soap that I personally like as well, that's made of oils. Sanitary wear, so Leah touched on that. So whether it's you're using pads that are organic, have cotton, no plastic, no bleach. Also look at using a menstrual cup like Leah was talking about. Also reusable sanitary wear as well. So then it's good for the environment as well and saves you money. Pesticides, so those are, they're involved in fruit and vegetable growth. So if we can avoid those as much as possible by eating organic where we can, if you can't, then rinsing your fruit and vegetables in a solution of vinegar and water will help to remove some of the pesticides that's on the skin. It won't remove, what's inside, but it will go some way. Artificial hormones as well, so that will come in. Well, actually, hormones in general will come in if you're eating. I think someone before talked about. So you're going to be taking on the animal's natural hormones anyway, and the video was saying that it was fine. Animal hormones, if you think about the size of a cow, so the cow has growth hormones, we have growth hormones. Cows need to grow to a massive extent, right? So we're taking on those hormones and we're taking in the cow's hormones, encouraging growth, which is humans, So this is what we need to be mindful of. And also some medications as well can interfere with our hormones as well. Then another thing we want to pay attention to is elimination. And elimination is about excreting those things out of our body, like your question now, going back to that question. So it's about excreting things out of the body. So making sure we're having regular bowel movements, and we can encourage that through high vegetable diet, high fibre diet.
What do you class as regular?
So I would say... Yeah, I would say it's different for each individual, but I would say at least once per day. If you're doing really well, then it might be after every meal, but I would say at least once a day. Yeah. And when it's coming out, it should be solid, it should be a log form, it should be easy to pass as well. Okay. Regular urination, so making sure that we are drinking enough to be able to urinate and get things out of our system as well. So this is what I'm talking about when I was saying about the third form of estrogen, making sure out of our system, so it's not hanging about and causing growth and someone's phone. Anyway, and also sweating. So making sure that we are doing things that will encourage us to sweat, getting those toxins out through our pores as well. And also, one more thing about personal care items, we do want to sweat under our arms as well. So we want to be using deodorants as opposed to antiperspirants and letting those toxins out of our system. Detoxification, so that's about actually removing things from our bloodstream so that they can then pass through the liver and be excreted out and go through to elimination. So we want to support our liver to do the job that our body does naturally, which is detox. Okay. So we want to make sure that we're reducing the load on our liver, what we call. We want to reduce or avoid things like alcohol, coffee or caffeine, tobacco, sugar, canned drugs and medications. I'm not saying people should not take medication, but just where we can avoid what is unnecessary. So supporting our liver to do the job that it needs to do naturally. And just a point about the liver. So the liver produces bile, which is yellow, and generally foods or herbs will be supportive for the liver as well. So things like turmeric. Okay. And then sleep as well, because like I said, sleep is highly involved in repair, regeneration, and just getting waste products out of the body as well. And sleep is a key time when hormones are released into the body as well. So we want to make sure that is related. And then we want to focus on rest and digest. So rest in terms of relaxation, not just having relaxation time, me time, taking time out for yourself. And I know we've probably heard the tips already. Getting out, whether it is going for a walk in the park or whether it is taking an Epsom salt bath, whether it's having just a shower. Sometimes for me, when I don't have time to have a bath, I have a shower, but I'll use essential oils and just flick some essential oils on the walls of the shower and just have a little bit of just breathe those essential oils in and just start my day in a good way. But managing stress as well, I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Optimizing gut health, so making sure we're taking in or we're eating in a way that that encourages healthy gut flora in our system. So that is by having a variety of vegetables which feed our gut flora, but also taking in that gut flora as well. So you can take it in various ways, whether it is, if you eat dairy, it will be things like yogurt and things like that. If you don't eat dairy, it will be things like sauerkraut, which is the Polish kind of cabbage thing. Kimchi as well. I'm trying to think of some others, but I can't right now. Yeah, kefir. Yeah. Things like that. Okay, so when we want to focus on living in hormone harmony, I've got up there in bold because I think stress is a key thing. It's something that by nature in the 21st century we are living with anyway. It's a part of our life and there's no avoiding it. But the key is about managing it. And one of the things that I like to think about when I think about stress is actually terming it in terms of life load. So stress doesn't have to be a bad thing. Stress can be a positive thing because it encourages us to think clearly and act promptly. But it's when stress goes on for too long, that's where the issue comes in. So what we want to do is actually look at our life load and think about what is the level of commitments that we've got in our life versus our capacity to deal with those commitments. Do we have the resources to be able to deal with all the commitments that we're facing? Are we taking on too much? So asking ourselves that question and being honest with it. If we find that we've got too much, where can we let go? Where can we delegate? Where can we get support? And really taking care of our emotional and mental well-being in that way. Okay, then we've got sleep. I won't go into that too much, so I've touched on that already. Movement, physical activity. So like Leah was saying, whether it is yoga, and you can combine movement and creativity and expression as well. So Leah was talking about that, we need to focus a lot more on, as women, being more creative and encouraging our feminine energy as well. So whether it is that, we combine the two and we do something like dance, or whether we look at singing, painting, whatever it is, making clothes, but something that's being creative, bringing out our creative expression. And when we're talking about expression as well, it's about opening up and talking and sharing. So as Black women, I believe personally that we tend to take everything on our shoulders and we believe that we can do everything. We take responsibility for things that aren't ours, and sometimes it's about pushing it back and managing what you can deal with. But where you need support, asking for help, and I know it can be hard, but asking for help, asking for support. If there was someone better able to do a job than you are, handing it over. And whether it is also journaling, talking to friends, family, or actual professionals as well, and seeking help through therapy or counselling, coaching, I encourage that as well. Okay, now I'm just going to talk about some nutrients to support hormonal balance. So vegetables, a multitude of uses and benefits all round. But yeah, vegetables, we want to focus on having a variety and having, a variety of vegetables, but also a variety of colours as well. Particular emphasis is on the dark greens. So, and it doesn't just have to be spinach and kale. It can be cabbage, it can be broccoli, it can be Brussels sprouts, spring greens. So yeah, we can switch that up as well. Protein. So again, quality and quantity. So sometimes we may be eating too much protein. I recommend that people eat a quarter of a plate when they're having a main meal, dinner or lunch, 1/4 of a plate of protein. If you eat meat, making sure it comes from a quality source. So organic, grass-fed, or corn-fed if it's chicken. But also switching your protein up with plant-based proteins as well, whether it's beans and pulses and things like that. And whole grains. So again, it comes down to quality and quantity. So I advise people to have no more than 1/4 of a plate of carbohydrates in general. You can switch up your carbohydrates between whole grains and root vegetables like potatoes, sweet potato and things like that. But when it comes to whole grains, wheat doesn't just have to be it. So you can swap it out for things like rye and spelt when it comes to actual flours. Spelt makes good, you can still use it to make dumplings and things like that. And rye as well. And then we can have other grains as well. So alternatives to rice would be quinoa, bulgur wheat, buckwheat, kamut, things like that. Okay, and then we've got our phytoestrogens. So phytoestrogens are plant estrogens that come from plants. They have a mild estrogenic effect on the body. And what that means is that when you take them in, they will actually attach to our receptor sites in our body. That then encourages that third form of estrogen that I was talking about before to be excreted out of the body because the receptor site is taken up by this phytoestrogen. So phytoestrogens come in the form of pulses and beans, flaxseed oil and things like that. Antioxidants, so berries and things like that, just great for cellular health all round. And like I said, cells are the smallest part or smallest components of our body, so we want to be protecting those. Really good for managing toxins as well and any damage to our cells. And then healthy fats as well. Okay, so things we want to avoid, some of the things we've talked about already, but refined and simple sugars. So these will be white sugars or sugar that has been basically extracted from a fruit and processed and added to something. So we want to reduce or avoid those. In place of that, we want to go for natural sugars, so whether it comes in the form of fruits, dried fruits, and adding those to our foods instead. So, for example, porridge. I had porridge this morning. I added blueberries and dried dates in there for my sweetener, as opposed to something like honey. Honey's fine, but it is refined, and I want the fibre in there. When you keep the fibre in a food or a sweet food, it helps to balance out the blood sugar levels, so it doesn't spike your blood sugar like another food can. I'm going to close up now because I'm being given time, but you can see the other elements there. If you have any questions, please come and talk to me in the break. And these are some of my top tips here. So sleep, looking at your stress and life load, water to encourage detoxification, green leafy veg, creativity and self-expression, and then I added a final bonus there in terms of getting support, asking for help. Thank you.
Big round of applause for Claudine.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can do the woo. Go ahead. The Hidden Science Academy presents